If you're like me and like to draw off of a reference image, I'm going to show you a quick tip that can help you find all those definitive lines, how to approach drawing some of the textures, where the highlights and shadows butt up against each other to make your drawing a little bit easier. Now the secret is, all you have to do is listen to your reference image. Now let me show you what I'm talking about here. First I'll do it on the computer, then I'll switch and show you how to do it on your phone. So let's say you want to draw this image, and I'm working in Lightroom here first because it really gives you a visual on your highlights and shadows. So when I flip this image to black and white, you can see it's a little bit muddy in those midtones, and that is because up here in this little graph, it represents the full spectrum from blacks to highlights. So you can see we're not even close to utilizing the full spectrum of highlights to shadows here. So what we're going to do, which will help sort of create a real clear direction for how you should draw this image, is over-exaggerate the highlights and the shadows, which will create a lot more contrast. We do that by bringing our whites way up. See, now we're using this full spectrum here, and our highlights way up, and then our blacks way down, so the contrast becomes really over-exaggerated. It can really show you how to approach drawing these different textures and shapes. Now obviously this is exaggerated, so you don't want to make it this extreme from your highlights to shadows, because we also lost the clouds in here, but it's just to help you find those defining lines. Now if you don't have Lightroom, which is what I'm working in right now, I'll show you how to do it in Photoshop quickly. I'm just doing the exact same thing here. You just switch it to black and white, click OK. It's just the same idea of making your highlights and shadows exaggerated, and it kind of pops out a roadmap for how you should approach then putting down your defining lines, how to create the texture in this tree and all those pine needles, as well as, you know, how you can go about drawing these blurred trees in the background. Now, let me show you how you can do this on your phone. So on your phone, just go up to Edit, and it might be a little bit different depending on what kind of phone you have. I'm working on an iPhone here. But first thing we want to do is bring down the saturation, which will turn it black and white. Then I like to go to this Brilliance tab, and that kind of makes everything pop a little bit more. That might be different on other phones, but it's the same idea. You bring your highlights way up, you bring your shadows way down, increase this contrast. Some of these you might have to play around with a little bit more. It's a little bit different on here. There's not quite as much definitive control, I think, on your phone. But again, it's the same idea of just creating a really sharp, over-dramatic difference between your highlights and shadows, as opposed to the original image, where if I go back, here those midtones are a lot more muddy, so it's not as easy, especially on these little pine needles. It's not as easy to see how you would approach drawing that. Now, if this quick tip was obvious to you and you already knew all this, please comment "duh" down below. But if this was of some benefit to you, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it.